Joyride, 1957, a novel of intrigue by J.P. Wasmiller, Chapter 73. "Where are you going?" she asked. "Glacier," he said. "Glacier? Whatever for?" she exclaimed. "Where shall I drop you?" he asked, with her warm body still tight against his. He was getting aroused, and so was she. "I live that's my... Can I come with you?" she stammered, shaking her pretty, short, black hair. It rubbed against his dressing and loosened it. "Ouch!" he cried. "Oh, I'm sorry, baby. Let me tape it back." She always carried a roll of tape in whatever she was wearing. She pulled a roll of adhesive tape out of the back pocket of her tight-fitting jeans. She carefully taped his dressing down securely and kissed him again on the lips. "So, let's go," she said, squeezing his thigh with her right arm. "Glacier it is," he said. "What do you do?" she asked as she sat back in the passenger bucket seat. She kept her hand high on his right thigh. He was more than grateful that God had sent him another angel. Research. By sunrise, they had reached East Glacier Park Village and checked into the Glacier Park Lodge. Bree had slept most of the way, and James had recently slept for 48 hours. They made sweet love under the goose-down covers, and while discussing their recent miracles, fell sound asleep until evening. They awoke. Each bought a jacket, as Glacier was cooler than Helena. Then they ate a huge dinner of steak and pheasant under glass. The dessert was baked Alaska. After this, they watched the beautiful sunset over the Rockies and spent the remainder of the night getting very, very well acquainted. The next morning, James was up studying his maps when Bree awoke. He by now had extended the diagonal line on his maps from Newport Tower, Rhode Island, through Alexandria, Minnesota, and northwest to the Canadian border. His line intersected the border at a point where the borders of the Canadian provinces of Alberta and British Columbia met that of the United States border or Montana border. He now studied the map further and realized that the point where the three land areas met was high up in the Rockies and virtually inaccessible. He spent an hour confirming this, finally deciding what he was hunting for could not be there or even have been taken there. With that in mind, he decided he would extend his line further west. That would extend into Canada. He did not think whatever he was hunting for would have been taken into Canada, but extended the line on his maps just the same. He was quite surprised at what he found. His AU line now went through Kelowna, British Columbia, then on through the towns of Merritt, Lytton, and then to the Pacific coast at Penrose Island. When he carried the AU line further out to sea, it ran across to Rose Harbor on Kunjit Island before running off into the Pacific Ocean and into the Aleutian Islands, intersecting there at the town of Perryville. Extending it further, the line reached the USSR. He threw up his hands. He was now more confused than ever. The line extended to remote, nearly uninhabitable places. He thought for a long time, then determined that he would at least go to Kelowna and also try to reach Clinton. His notes reflected that there was something in the town of Clinton to see. Bree now came over to the desk where he had been feverishly working. She was in a fluffy white bathrobe and sat on his lap. She stared at the maps and the lines he had drawn. "Have you found it?" she asked, squirming on his lap. "No, not yet, but I will, honey. How would you like to take a little ride to Canada?" She stared into his eyes for a long moment, then gave him one of her lingering kisses. "Can we shower first?" she said, her lips still lingering on his.